Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's our favorite time of the week. There are cool new knives that hit our shelves every single day, and these are the coolest that have just hit them. That makes sense, right?
Nope.
Let's check them out. All right, first up today is a new Benchmade that dropped just today, in fact. It is not a new knife, but it is a new color version of the Redoubt. This time in an all blacked out, all tacked out version.
Tacked out Redoubt.
The tacked out Redoubt. One could say, but should one?
I did.
Thomas did. Tacked out mean, very tactical, we'll say that. So the Redoubt's cool, and what I like about it is it has a lot of the same things I like about the Griptilian in the lineup, which is a little bit less expensive. These are coming in at $180. The Griptilians are a little less expensive, as mentioned, but you've got a very neutral injection molded handle. Any hand size is going to have no problem with this. Small, big, anything in between, slightly larger than average, no problems. And that's due to the nature and the contouring of it. And you've got plenty of traction thanks to this kind of grenade stippled thing going on. Thing, that's a technical term, don't you know? And then you've got a deep carry pocket clip resting over that. It is a little bit more of a pocket shredder than if it were smooth underneath the pocket clip, but conversely, less likely to slip out of the pocket. And where I think this thing really improves on what the Griptilian offers, in my opinion at least, and focused on my needs in particular, is a more efficient cutting blade, a slicier geometry to it. There you go, 3.5 inches long, just over that 3.5 inch mark. CPM D2, which is not D2. It's a powder metallurgy version of D2, which means those big carbides that give D2 its edge retention, but conversely reduce the toughness of the blade steel, are shrunk. So you get more toughness out of this, meaning you can work it harder. You can kind of work more indiscriminately with it, with less fear of it chipping out or breaking as you're cutting. And you're still going to get great edge retention too. The all black coating here is also going to help prevent oxidation or rust, since D2 and CPM D2 as well are only semi-stainless. That's a nice thing there. The knife is of course fully ambidextrous because we've got Benchmade's axis lock, that crossbar mechanism right there, which is easily accessible from either side, even if my left-handedness is a little more clumsy but then the knife allows, which is just the same right or left. Reversible clip, dual thumb studs, same great stuff all around. Yes, I mentioned this is kind of a very tactical variant of an already tactical knife, but for everyday carry use, a 3.5 inch drop point with edge geometry or cutting geometry like this is perfect. Like, this is exactly the sort of thing I gravitate to for my needs because it just works so well across a broad range of things. You're going to get that with this knife. So this is Benchmade's first new for 2024 release. We're going to be able to show you, however, even more new 2024 Benchmade stuff next week, including all new models, not just new variants. That's because Thomas and I and Seth will be at SHOT Show in Las Vegas, the annual event, where a ton of knife companies reveal a lot of their new for the year stuff. Benchmade among them. We will be there showing you that stuff as well as several other great brands. So you won't want to miss it. And I don't often ask, but if you want to subscribe to the channel, we would appreciate it. And if you want to be the first to see the new stuff as it's coming out, you can hit that little bell notification thing that YouTube does. It's down there somewhere.
Ding.
Ding. So I don't often ask to do that, but that is going to be the best way to see the stuff just as soon as we get those videos posted. Anyway, no more of that. Moving on. A new K-bar. Here it is, a new K-bar, technically K-bar, but a John Eck Commando flipper knife, which is of course something very new to the Eck lineup. I don't believe there has ever been a folding Eck knife before the K-bar days of ownership of that storied brand. It's all been tactical fixed blades. Check it out. Here you go, $120 for this knife. It is coming with a big 4-inch S30V blade. Sorry, S35VN, a little bit tougher than your S30V. Great straight backed profile right there. Very aggressive, yet very thin. Still gonna be useful for everyday carry. And the handle, long and narrow. Injection molded, but it doesn't feel cheap at all. You've got an inset liner lock. You've got a reversible wire pocket clip. Whole thing disappears into the handle except for the flipper tab when you close that blade. And the weight is not that bad. 3.2 ounces for a big 4-inch blade. This definitely falls into kind of that big easy category. Not gonna weigh down in the pocket, yet gives you a ton of cutting power when you go to deploy that knife. And there you go. And check out the deployment. Ball bearings in the pivot. Nice, flippy, snappy stuff going on. Excellent. The wire clip is also gonna keep it very subtle from the outside too. So if you don't like to advertise the fact that you've got any knife, much less a big 4-inch bladed knife, that's a nice little feature too. I like also that they carried over some design cues from the fixed blade lineup in the form of these fasteners right here. The pivot is the same as the other two screw down points that actually are holding the handle scales to the inset liners, but you've got that, cross flat headed, aesthetic, what's the word? Cross flat head thing going on right there. So it's very easy to adjust those on the fly, even with improvised tools. A simple coin would be able to, rotate those pocket screws, pivot screws, and other screws, I should say. So that is a cool thing. I kind of would have liked to see maybe what it might have looked like if they'd carried over, even if it was very subtly done, those little scallops that come in the handles of the fixed blade knives. We'll see if we can show a picture up here to show you what I'm talking about. It might have been cool to see that on this knife. I'm wondering why they didn't. Anyway, no big deal, but still definitely looks like an EK, and it feels very well put together. Good blade material, especially for the price, and especially for the fact that you get so much of it in something that is going to be so easy to carry.
For when you need an executive knife, but you work at a PMC.
Yeah, you're like in charge of one of those, perhaps. There you go. Perfect for you. How about a Microtech? Also good for that sort of role. Signature Series Combat Troodon with the much loved and much hated by some folks out there, but mostly I think much loved Ultem handle material covers. Here on the front, aluminum still on the back, and an Ultem firing button right here. $655 for this particular knife. Sterile blade in this case, no blade markings. Oh, technically not sterile because since there's a black finish, but no logos or any markings on the blade itself. 3.75 inches, nicely finished, high flat grind with a drop point. And it's still thick enough for heavier use, I would say. You definitely still do the tactical stuff, especially since we've got Magna Cut blade steel right here. And here's the point of the program where I take just a brief moment for those who aren't familiar with Magna Cut just to say why it is so special, why it is so coveted these days. It's a stainless steel that boasts both very high edge retention and very high toughness. Usually, if you're a stainless, you can only get one of those other two categories in truly high marks, except for Magna Cut. You get both in very high-performing amounts. Of course, you've got signature Microtech action. Very good right there. In and out with authority. Reversible deep carry pocket clip with the double pinch points. Tail mounted with the ceramic ball there at the end, or is it tungsten? I can't remember. The glass breaker ball there at the back. Everything feels great, looks good. Great blade shape for all kinds of uses. Winner, winner. Now for the next knife, also in Magna Cut, but maybe less of a useful blade for most folks, for most day-to-day uses, I should say. If you're a tactical user and you need your OTF to be very tactical, this is definitely the blade shape for you. The Heretic Cleric II OTF. $500, 4¼ inch blade, Magna Cut steel, double edged. That's over 8 inches of edge retention right there, which is pretty nice. And it looks pretty darn stunning too. We've got, what are these? Yeah, I had a brain fart there. Titanium inlays, kind of this bubbled thing going on with flame anodization. It looks fantastic. It feels really good too. You get that texture without it being too grabby or too sharp. Gives you that extra grip without the discomfort, which is very cool. The firing button is on the side rather than on the spine side of the handle. Works very, very good. I mean, man, feels great. Deep carry pocket clip, I shouldn't say that. Not really a deep carry pocket clip, but a nice milled pocket clip pushed as far back as it can go, but you are gonna have a little bit of knife sticking out, and that is reversible. Even though the switch is definitely one-sided, it's still easy to pull that out and deploy with the left hand too. You've also got that ball for glass breaking on the end too. Kind of a big easy knife here too. Very narrow, plenty of blade. If a double-edged blade is useful for you day to day or useful for your more clandestine operations, definitely check this one out. What I like about Heretic is they do stuff like complete polar opposite ends of kind of the knife spectrum. You've got an OTF automatic right there, right next to a slip joint pocket knife that they also make. This is the Jinn 3-inch Magna Cut blade, about $320 for it. Straight up sheep's foot profile, but with a lot of details that spice it up. You've got the swedge, you've got this fullered portion with serrations, shall we say, or like jimping on the edges of the fuller's shoulder, and then of course the two-tone finish as well. Lots of stuff going on to spice it up. Flat grind on the straight section there, thin enough that it's still gonna slice pretty well, and of course that very acute tip gonna work quite nicely. Carbon fiber for the handles. You've got a milled titanium clip here, which is reversible. Everything on this knife, in fact, is symmetrical side to side. Once you flip that clip around, I should say. Nice half stop, nice feeling on the close right there. Fairly lightweight. The handles on these are just carbon fiber. There's no extra liners adding weight there. 1.69 ounces for 3 inches of Magna Cut cutting potential. Very cool. Hidden lanyard point too, forgot to mention that. All right, we've got a couple more non-locking knives here. This one is rather unusual, but I rather like it. And it is the Boker Sprocket, or Sprocket, so named for the look of the mechanism here around the pivot. It's about $40 for this knife. The blade itself is D2, about 1.77 inches long. G10 for the handles. Check out the fold here. I just think that is so neat. You do have a chisel ground blade here, or it's actually, yeah, it is actually a chisel ground. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't sharpened with a double bevel there right at the actual edge. It is sharpened from a single side. So this is a true chisel grind, and as such, even though the blade is exposed, when you combine that grind with that little strip of G10 sticking out, very, very unlikely you're going to accidentally cut anything, even though, like I said, the blade is technically exposed. The edge itself kept right there, flat as it can be against the G10 backer. Then when it's time to use the knife, would make a great fifth pocket knife, that watch pocket in the pair of jeans. Simply pull it out, and it's got one-hand operation. It is non-locking, as mentioned. This is kind of that spring detent arm to hold it hold it open, that kind of detent joint action. But because it's a three-piece design, essentially, two pieces for the handle, the way you hold it, the blade is not going to close on your fingers because that finger guard is going to stop it, as long as you're holding it properly, I should say. And then you got just a kind of handy utility blade right there with the edge retention of D2, which is pretty cool. Stone-washed finish, black for the G10, as you can see. Looks a bit like a gimmick, but I would not call it that. I think it is pretty darn cool. Offers a unique take on non-locking utility and being able to actually get some real work done with confidence in a non-locking knife. So that's very cool. A couple more non-lockers. The 2024 special Alox limited edition colorway from Victorinox is in stock now, and as is typical, it's on essentially the same three models. I say essentially because we'll get to that in a moment. I'll tell you why. But you've got the classic. This is the Terra brown color. It might come across a little interesting on camera. It's kind of a hard color to capture and communicate well through the digital medium, unfortunately. I do like the way it looks in person. It's kind of a yellowy brown, almost like a dirty gold, like a pyrite type of color. I think it's really, really neat. The classic, $44. Classic SD technically, because you've got the screwdriver tip on the end of the file, you've got the penknife blade, and you've got the pair of scissors on the opposite side. All just a single layer thick, wrapped up in that very thin aluminum Alox handles right there. Makes it very slim, very easy to carry. 2024 on the back side. Alongside that, we have got the Pioneer X for 77 bucks. Previously, I can't remember where they've actually done Pioneers, but they've always been Pioneer X's, at least in the last several years. The Pioneer X is the Pioneer with the addition of a pair of scissors, as you can see right there. So you've got that scraper / awl right there, adjacent or opposite to the main blade. And then you've got the ubiquitous pairing of tools in the Victorinox, all kinds of models across the Victorinox lineup. Can opener, I did it again. I always do that. Can opener with small flathead driver on the tip that can also run on some Phillips screws. And you've got the cap lifter with the big flathead / pry bar tip and the wire stripper notch on the opposite side. And then last but not least, we've got the Evoke, which previous versions or iterations of the limited edition color set from Victorinox, clumsily communicated by me in this case, have been the Hunter Pro. The Evoke is pretty much the same knife, but it is technically a model change there if we're getting technical. Just about a 4-inch blade, same standard stainless steel used in the rest of the Swiss Army knife lineup. Abrupt flat grind right there to add a little bit of strength. Dual set of thumb studs, one side of which you can see has that hex treatment going on, so you could turn that if you wanted to remove it perhaps. And then you've got the backlock construction, mid-mounted backlock, lanyard loop at the back with that nice deep carry pocket clip. Single-sided pocket clip, however, in this case, you're not gonna be able to reverse that around. But yeah, there is the other one. Very nice color. Check them out. All right, how about some fixed blades? We've got a new batch of LT Wrights in stock. Here are just two of the recent models we just picked up. New small Northern Hunter, this time with the twisted red, orange, black, and white layered G10. And that material with the twist just looks almost psychedelic. It looks really, really cool. 135 bucks for this. It's US made, handcrafted by a small team in Ohio. And you've got AEBL stainless steel here, which is a steel I'm a big fan of. It's a stainless. It is pretty darn tough, in many cases tougher even than MagnaCut, which we talked about earlier, but won't hold an edge to the same degree as MagnaCut. I still think it has respectable edge holding, but in that trade-off, there always is a trade-off with most other conventional steels. But it's still, like I said, a great performer. But you've got a good feel in the hand, 3.5-inch blade, very versatile shape with that kind of elliptical Canadian style, and the handle, again, nice elliptical neutrality to it. Big hands, small hands, everything in between work great on these knives. Of course, it comes with a sheath. Here it is, brown leather, made by JRE Industries. Great for taking this into the woods on a hunting or camping trip. Great little hiker. Great everyday carry fixed blade. If you think you can incorporate something like this into your everyday carry without it being too obtrusive, this is going to be a great little option. Next up, on a different side of the size spectrum, the Gen 5 from LT Wright, which is basically a 5-inch version of their Genesis model. And this one right here features a full flat grind, which we've not had in stock before. A2 steel is a non-stainless steel that has pretty good edge retention and pretty darn good toughness too. Very well-rounded steel, especially for outdoor use, which of course the LT Wright stuff is especially known for. They're also especially known for the crisp spine, so you can strike a fire steel. Both of these knives, in fact, possess that, but the Gen 5 series here seems to have an even crisper spine than the small Northern Hunters. And they're also known for the way they finish the handles here. It's done by hand. Essentially no hot spots that you could ever dream of. Everything is smooth, perfectly seamed, just ready for hours and hours of work. And with this neutral handle shape too, very easy to drill with it in combination with that centerline spear point blade. And because of this neutral shape, again, works for all kinds of different hand sizes and all kinds of different grips too. Got those thumb scallops there to add to that as well. About $265 for this version right here with the green canvas micarta. I think we've also got black. We've also got some Scandi ground versions with python micarta and orange liners. Those will be a little bit more expensive though. They all do come with a JRE Industries sheath, as is usual. For these, you've got two more features that the Northern Hunter didn't. You've got the fire steel loop right here for carrying up to a 3/8 inch diameter fire steel. And you've got the dangler here, so you can keep it lower, out of the way of a pack belt or a heavy winter coat. Or if you want it to ride higher, simply tug it out of the way, and you got another belt loop right there. All right, next up, we've got some Toor knives. We're gonna dive back into the tactical side of the fixed blade thing. This is a limited edition Raven. $375 US made out of CPM 3V steel, a particle metallurgy, non-stainless steel with very good toughness and edge retention. So you've got those two things that MagnaCut has, but you don't have the stainlessness. Keep that in mind. 5.5 inches of it, fairly thick with a stout saber grind going on. A little bit higher than the center line, which would be a true saber grind in this case, but the geometry itself is flat. Fairly good cross-section between the sliceability and just more brute force that it brings to the table, but then very, very much tapering down to a wickedly acute tip, thanks to the distal taper of the blade and the swedged harpoon point profile going on. Going to be a very wicked piercer when needed. Like the LT Wright, we've got green canvas micarta, but you've also got something else here in the form of copper liners, which add a bit of weight. Like copper is definitely a heavy material, and you feel that little bit of extra mass in the handles themselves. Kind of a reassuring heft to go with that slightly thicker blade stock. Makes you feel like this could really withstand the apocalypse. And you've also got that breacher ball there at the back. For the sheath, we've got a simple brown leather taco style sheath here. If you want to attach this to your belt, you are going to need to supply your own mechanism. In that case, a large tech lock will be your friend. It will fit these riveted holes perfectly. Next up from Toor, we have the Overlord, a slimmer, more agile Tanto bladed affair right here. $350, CPM 154, which like CPM D2 is a powder metallurgy variant of another non-powder steel, in this case, that 154 CM. So edge retention compared to 154 CM should be about the same, but CPM 154, just like the CPM D2, is going to get extra toughness over the non-particle variant going on. And then of course it's a stainless as well. That extra toughness is going to come in handy with that very acute tip, similar in some ways to that Raven, because you've got plenty of rigidity back here, but that nice taper down to a very acute tip. That extra toughness might help that keep from accidentally snapping off under real rough usage there. Full flat grind in this case with a swedge and very aggressive serrations, a bit of that flat top serration thing going on. A couple different colors. This is a woodland green coating on the blade, actually. Just a hint of green in there. It's not particularly green. Almost more reads gray, but there's a little bit of that color in there. And then black G10, kind of a symmetrical handle here, so you will have to pay attention to which way you're holding the knife. You can't really tell by feel which way it is, or which way the edge is facing, so keep that in mind too. Also, like the Raven, this comes with a sheath, but in this case it's Kydex, but you will need something else to attach it to your belt if you want to do that. Large tech lock, VVT clip will work nicely. This might be a good candidate for an ulti clip as well for inside the waistband carry. That could work pretty nicely. All right, next we've got a couple of Bawidamann fixed blades. Just a bad man. I always think about that for some reason. This is the Gunner SP, $445 for this, also made in the USA. S35 VN steel, 4¼ inches, big aggressive Tanto profile with the Quicksilver acid etched finish in this case. Very cool look. You've got G10 handles sculpted for extra grip. I really like, my personal favorite detail of this knife is the spine treatment. It's chamfered, but kind of softened over, and this finish adds something to it. There's just a lot going on there to look at and appreciate. You've got some jimping for your thumb. You've got some, not technically jimping, but more different types of traction points up there for the choke up position. You've got a big aggressive blade for heavier cuts. You can do that chisel-y type of stuff with it, thanks to that completely straight leading edge right there. Yeah, just big and aggressive, without being like super unwieldy. I mean, like I said, it's only 4¼ inches, but it feels like it's got more attitude in that 4 1/4 inches than many other knives on this planet. Let me pull out the sheath right here. Here it is. It is Kydex, and it comes with a J-style clip right here. Going to make it easy to incorporate in an inside the waistband type of fashion, especially for this bad boy. This Bawidamann, I should say. Right? No, probably not. We've also got, we have a couple different versions of that, but several versions of the Huginn, which you've seen this before on the channel, but like I said, we got a bunch of new versions in right now, so wanted to take a new opportunity to check it out. Kydex sheath, also with that J-style clip right there. Easy enough for your inside the waistband type of stuff. And this one also has the Quicksilver finish. Maybe I should have picked a different, one of those different finishes in this case to show you some more variety, but hey, that's on me, that's my mistake. 3 3/4 inch blade, crew wear blade steel here, which, since we're comparing everything to MagnaCut nowadays, why don't we do that again? Has high degrees of toughness and high degrees of edge retention, but is not a stainless steel. So I said 3 3/4 inch blade, but you've actually got more sharpened edge than that because you've got half of the backside of the blade sharpened as well. So you've got a little space there to choke up with your thumb, push on some cuts, but be real careful not to go too forward because you don't want to push into that sharpened edge as you're going. Yeah, keep that in mind. Also a little bit thicker on the tip itself to give it a little bit more strength than if it were super, super needle-like. You can see there the actual secondary bevels thickening up. That's actually a good thing in my opinion when the tip is so acute otherwise. So more strength, good stuff right there. Handles here, actually marbled carbon fiber, but several options are available. All right, we talked about MagnaCut. How about one more MagnaCut folder for the day? The ACE Nazca crossbar locking knife, new version of this that I don't believe I've shown here on the channel already. If so, you're seeing it again. 3 1/8 inch blade, roughly, of MagnaCut steel. Very, very distinctive blade shape. Shall we call that a...
Yes.
You're right, it's a modified Wharncliffe. I don't know what to call this blade. I've never known what to call this blade. It's got elements of modified Wharncliffe. It's got elements of a Sax. It's got elements of the dreaded reverse Tanto, which we almost made it through one episode without having to talk about that, but that's okay. But despite it not having a convenient name, it's certainly going to be a very useful shape. Continuous belly through most of it, very acute tip for your everyday piercing needs and just general sliceology. Yes, it's a science, we're going to go with that. And then you've got carbon fiber handles with a nice contour, wire pocket clip, which is reversible, works perfectly either side, perfectly ambidextrous knife right here, thanks to the crossbar lock and the thumb studs doing the same thing. Action is very good. You've got ball bearings in this pivot as opposed to bronze washers bronze or otherwise. And just a nice, compact, stylish feel that still feels the hand, but it's not going to kind of overburden you with something too much to carry around, more urban places especially, or any kind of just day-to-day use. That's really nice. $265 for this, made by Bestech, who are doing a great job with their crossbar lock, and that is of course ported over here, equally nice. Man, I petered out towards the end there, didn't I?
Oh well.
And we're going to sort of end the video today kind of full circle from where we started at the beginning. Something very similar, an American-made, all blacked out tactical folder right here. This is the Brous Kinetic 3 1/2 inch D2 blade. Actually, there's kind of some similarities going on here in terms of aesthetic and materials here. So D2, not CPM D2 in this case. You've got G10 handles as opposed to injection molding, but there is a significant amount of milling going on here. It's not just a flat slab. Feels a bit more pointed, a little less neutral. When I say pointed, I don't mean like pointy in your hand, but kind of pointing the blade in the general forward direction in your standard saber grip right here. 3 1/2 inches D2 drop point, high flat grind, full length swedge, similar aspects to that bailout, or our readout we just looked at too. Interestingly, and perhaps astutely, for a tactical folder, this is tip down only carry, which if we're talking about speed of deployment of a tactical knife, it's actually probably a little bit quicker than if it were tip up, because you can draw the knife and it's a simple pivot like that to get it into the firing and hold open position, as opposed to having to, draw it, having it by the tail of the knife, having to pivot around, scoot it down in your hand, and then getting to your grip. So even faster for the tactical uses. $215 for this knife, and that is the last knife for today. You can also get it with a satin profile, I should say that. Black G10 with a satin blade if you prefer that. And that one is about $195, so you save some money by going without the coating in that case. But that is it for today. Let me know what you thought of the knives down in the comments, and if you want to get your hands on any of them, check out the links in the description to take you to KnifeCenter.com. And don't forget about our SHOT Show coverage, of course, next week, where you'll see even more new stuff that you'll be able to buy real soon. But until then, if you want any of these, check out the links in the description as mentioned. While you're over at the Knife Center, don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program, because if you're going to buy one of these knives today, you can at least earn some free money to spend on one of those SHOT Show knives you're going to see next week, eh? I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, and that's Thomas behind the camera. We're signing off. See you next time.